Hello, this is George Sandman. I'm the founder and CEO of Growth Drive. And Growth Drive is a system used by business advisors to drive client profits, growth, and value. Now, we're also a community. Every week we get together to talk about all things business advisor, everything clients, cases, things we're seeing out in the world. Now, tune in here to this podcast, and you can join the conversation by scanning this QR code, passcode 867-5309. Jump into the conversation. Everyone's welcome. We're looking forward to having you. So here we go. On with the show.
Looks like it's just the two of us.
George and a whole bunch of people are at the BEI conference, I guess.
Aha. Okay.
He came on briefly 15 minutes ago or so. I'm sitting in a car in the rain. It's now getting lighter, waiting to go to a conference downtown Portland. So I didn't want to be driving and try to do anything like Tim Rohde sometimes does and Joe does occasionally. So
Yep. So it's just the you and I.
it appears that way. Yes.
Okay. Well, how are you? What Portland is that? Is that Portland, Oregon or Portland, Maine?
Well, today it's Portland, Oregon, but around June 1st, I'll be near Portland, Maine. I'm going to be in Boston, and we've taken a trip up to Portland, Maine from there in the past, so might happen again.
So you are from Portland, Oregon?
I am actually originally, my wife, from Detroit, Michigan.
Oh, lovely. I used to live in Seattle, so I came to Portland a few times.
Okay. Where are you now?
I am in the Washington, D.C. metro area.
Oh, I'm sorry.
Hi.
That's
Me too.
I get to visit there once a year. There was a period of time when I was working for the National Academy of Sciences on a couple committees, and I got there like 6 times for the year. Not a place I'd want to live. It's a great place to go for power brokering and things, but yeah. Where do you actually live though?
I live in Bethesda, Maryland. I'm just outside of the district in Chevy Chase, close to Chevy Chase, Bethesda.
Yeah, okay. That's a little bit nicer.
Yeah. It's, I think all in all, it's not a terribly bad place to be. I mean, it gets tiring sometimes. I totally agree. And sometimes it's a little bit, too much politics.
Yeah.
I would say, but all in all, I think that at least I've enjoyed it. It's a lovely, other than politics, it's a lovely place to be.
What took you to Seattle?
My ex-husband was an officer in the Navy, so I have lived all over. We lived in San Diego. From San Diego, we moved to Seattle, and in Seattle, I spent about 2.5 years back in 1999, 2000, 2001. Started my very first company there, and lived in Queen Anne and Lamy Island, one of the Orcas Islands.
Oh, yeah. I know those areas.
And then we went to Japan, to Italy, and we moved back here in the DC metro area where I first, was living before we got married. So I've been here for 23 years. But yes, I enjoyed Seattle. I enjoyed the Northwest very, very much, regardless of the fact that everybody says, "Are you crazy? It's always raining." I think it was a really nice thing. And then back in 16 to 18, I spent 2.5 years coming back and forth to Seattle because I was a chief operating officer of a GovCon company, and they were headquartered in Kirkland, Seattle. And so I spent a considerable amount of time going back and forth from DC to Seattle over those 2.5 years. I was there at least 1 week a month, sometimes more, every single month.
So how did you get involved in Growth Drive?
Well, It's funny you said that. So I've been in strategy and management consulting forever, but I've also been very familiar with, well, I mean, I started my first company when in 99, 2000. So I was very familiar with startups and with emerging market investment. So when I first moved here to the United States, I was working for an emerging market fund. It was a $30 million fund that was basically investing in companies in Albania, where I'm from. And
Okay.
so I really enjoyed I had a business degree, and I really enjoyed the whole idea of, investments and equity and, growing businesses and so on. And then I started my business and I finished my MBA, and I've always been entrepreneurial. And I ended up, because of my husband, we moved a lot. And so when I came here to DC area, I started working for Booz Allen Hamilton for about 4 years, and I realized that I loved it and I learned a lot, but it was a little bit too slow for me. So then I went independent, doing exactly what I was doing at Booz Allen, but I was doing on my own. And at the same time, right before I left Booz Allen, I got into technology management. And I realized that I speak geek. I get technology, and so and by nature, or by the way my brain works, I have an architect's mind, both like buildings or solutions. And so I went independent and I built my own consulting business, mainly the government space, for about 10 years. And I did both, strategy and management consulting, but also technology management. And at some point, I was in a chief information officer track, because I was working with large programs and, big picture stuff. And by that time, I had become a business architect for, as well as an enterprise architect. So connecting the business capabilities and functions and business processes with the technology that supports it. And so I was like, okay, now I've done this. What else can I do? And so then I went and ran that $10 million company, which was GovCon, which was in the area I knew very well, both as a consultant and then as a service provider. And then, so did that for a while, and I left them, and I just had this fork on the road. Do I go back to government consulting, which was fine, but been there, done that, or do I want to do something different? And so I said to myself, okay, well, I love working. I'm very entrepreneurial. I love the whole entrepreneurial spirit in America. And so I said, how can I be of assistance to small businesses? And then I was just thinking, okay, what would a business owner or CEO or a startup owner would need? And then I realized that I had done a lot of the functions that go into a business, but I didn't have a lot of experience in valuation. And, so I've done the startup, I've done the raising funds, I've done the operations and marketing and sales and HR, overseeing all of those or working as part of it. But I didn't have a lot of experience in business valuation. And so I started working with a boutique business valuation firm here in the area, and I really enjoyed it. And it was a really nice strategic partnership, because I understood technology very well, and a lot of the projects that we're doing were technology companies, either raising capital or sales, boutique, sales. So I was sort of the person that connected the dots from the business value to the secret sauce and strategic value from a technology perspective. And so I did few of those projects and I really enjoyed it. And I said, okay, well, what is after business valuation? Well, it's actually sale. And then the question is, okay, what do I need for sales? So it's exit planning and due diligence and actual running through selling a business process, which I've done all of those. And then I said, okay, now that I have a really good understanding, maybe not at the expert level at everything, but I really truly understand what are the different functions and the different, what's the life cycle of a business, I just said, okay, I think I would like to work in helping business owners of smaller companies, because up to 70 million, maybe 50 million, depending on what's going on, a lot of those companies are too small for larger service providers, strategy and service providers to deal with. So I thought, well, how about if we try to help these businesses and get the same quality of service, but that they would get from the strategic companies and the larger companies, but will be for them. And so I was looking for something to anchor that. And so I knew of the work that George did before this, which was, I forgot, was like core value.
Core value, yeah.
Yeah. And so I was looking at different systems. I'm a, value builder certified, and then I did core value. And then, they were all very helpful. They gave a good platform in trying to organize. And then Growth Drive came along, and I really loved the extra work, or the extra, maturity that George put in it. And coming from a strategy and management consulting, I always look at things from a maturity model. And so it was clear to me that while core value was more sort of a operational sort of assessment, in my humble opinion, I think the Growth Drive seems to be much more contextual and much more holistic in the growth space. And that's how I came here. So I've known George since 19, when I started transitioning into like creating this new sort of direction for my strategic advisory and coaching. And I'm an executive coach too. So I've sort of like put together a tool set that is very holistic, both on the advisory portion and on the coaching portion, with the idea to work with small business owners and CEOs to help them grow their business and achieve their results, basically.
Did you actually join Growth Drive, or still? Okay.
No. I have been part of Growth Drive for quite a while, and through the certification, I think I have 1 hour left. I unfortunately, I do have a strong advisory practice in the technology space. I do a lot of work with cyber and AI. And so that sort of pays the bills while I build, the growth advisory practice.
Mm-hmm.
And so that's why I'm sort of like running in two parallel tracks at once.
Okay.
So that's how I came here. How about yourself?
Well, I'll get into that in a moment, but taking a quick look, I recognized when you said Albania because my wife is Serbian and Croatian,
Lovely.
and her mother at the Serbian Orthodox Church always hated when the Macedonians started coming in and quote unquote taking over. There's so much animosity in that part of the world over small segments of land. It's just amazing to me. But some of my fraternity brothers have been on that coast of the Mediterranean. It's just beautiful there.
Yes, it is.
And I've never been there, so I don't know what it's like, but they talk positively about all of that. So,
Yep, it is. That is true. We have a long history, and I recognize everybody's got an opinion about it. And I try not to get into it, but I just want to remind everybody, every time we talk about this, the only thing I say is, let's just take a step back and think about that Albanians were there even before the Greeks.
oh yeah,
And let's just say there that majority of the Slavic-speaking countries in the Balkans have been there only for 1,400 years. And so when we talk about pieces of land, that's all I have to say. Mic drop.
So you asked about my background.
Mhm.
I came up through corporate America, three companies that used the Booz Hamiltons, the Roland Bergers, the
Yeah.
McKinseys, the Boston Consulting Groups
Yeah.
throughout the years. So the three companies, I'm sure you've heard of two of them. The third one, maybe. First one was General Electric. I'm
Yeah.
sure you've heard of them. Uh, Second one is Eaton, which you may or may not have heard of.
Remind me, I've heard of them, but I don't remember what they do.
Um, so they make car parts.
Okay.
They bought Westinghouse Electric. They bought Cutler Hammer
Hmm.
through the years, and so now they're more heavily into electrical things than anything else. But uh, let's see, do they have anything left of automotive? They sold off the truck stuff to Cummins Engine not long ago. Um, so they're getting they just don't have a core expertise in that anymore. And then the third company is
Yeah.
Daimler, which now it's Daimler Truck on my
Yeah.
no, it's not even Daimler Truck. They just sold the pension plan to an insurance company as an annuity. So my checks don't even say Daimler Truck anymore. So uh,
I got it. I got it. So
as long
what
as the
were
money keeps coming in, I don't care what it says on the check.
yes. So what was your focus and expertise?
So I am an MIT grad in electrical engineering,
Uh-huh.
and like you, I'm a somebody who sees the big picture and then knows how to simplify it and bring it to life somehow. I've had the chance to work on medical saving, life-saving diagnostic equipment. I've worked on nuclear-powered submarines. I've worked on the satellites that we listen to music on in our cars,
Yeah.
uh, and everything in between. Uh, Technology is part and parcel of what intrigues me. Uh, right now,
That's pretty cool.
it is. Right now, I'm uh, Portland areas in Oregon are big into the food scene, and so there's an annual exhibition in downtown for the Food Processors Expo. So,
Believe it or not, I'm very familiar with food processing. My sister had one of the first privatized food processing factory in Albania back in from 96, 97 to 2006 when she sold it. So I did a lot of work to help her. All the food processing was for export in Europe, which had very high
mhm,
standards. And so I did a lot of work to help them raise funds for ISO 9000 at the time and for
sure.
upgrading, and did a lot of work with factory floor, optimization and all these other things. So I do know about food processing more than I care to know.
I just love being around machines and manufacturing in general. So, uh,
Ah, nice. Yeah. No, I don't know if I love being around machines, but I do like optimization in anything I
mhm.
do. And so I always like the idea of figuring out how to do something faster, better, and to actually, most importantly, measure what is it that we're really doing. Because I think measuring and matrix, I think are it's the thing that closes the loops on a bunch of things. If you don't do that, then you don't know what worked and what didn't work and why you're doing what you're doing.
Well, you'll like this story then. Um, for 36 or 37 years now, my wife and I make our own Christmas card. Uh,
Nice.
yes. And there was one year we took over the island in the kitchen because we were decorating the front of this card with some gold paint or something and making it look like clouds or something that the angels were coming out of. I don't remember exactly. But my wife was taking like 5 minutes to make each card front. Each one was basically a personalized piece of art to her. And here I come, the engineer behind her, and I want to circle this island and get these things done as quickly as possible. And we stayed married, but it was a tense moment there when artist hit uh, uh, the guy who wants to do it better, faster.
Well, I can see you misread the room a little bit, because it wasn't about how fast she can do it, also what she put in it and the pleasure she got out of it, right?
Oh, yes. Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely.
I get it. I
So,
get it.
so
Well,
I don't remember how I found George, but what had originally attracted me partially to core value was the algorithms had been partially developed by uh, MIT. Wasn't
correct.
originated at MIT, but he moved to
Yes,
MIT and continued developing it there. And since
correct.
I'm an MIT grad, in fact, I'm going to my 50th reunion in a month. I thought that was cool. My company's colors are MIT colors. Okay, I'll use a tool that was developed at MIT. That sounds like a good marketing thing to talk about. But then that disappeared, uh, and to me, more so than what you're saying, I still see the remnants of core value in the growth drive clarity.
Oh, absolutely.
Yeah.
Absolutely. Without a mistake, it is there. I think here it is my thesis, and I've said this before, but what I discovered working, doing like business valuation and M&A and so on, and in general, when I was looking to say, okay, well, what do I want to do right now? I mean, in America, we always say, well, what are you? I'm a strategy and management consultant. And somebody knows kind of, or I'm a like an expense reduction consultant, or like there is a certain correlation. When we talk about growth strategy or growth advisor, there is no such thing. I think partially because growth on its own as a practice does not exist. Most of the time, it's been my experience, at least with my sort of vantage point, is that growth is a discussion that happened vis-a-vis an event or an unsolicited, you know, uh, offer to sell and things like that. I think a lot of businesses, don't connect well unless you are a publicly traded company, which is a different conversation of value. For the privately held companies, there is not a good way to connect value with revenue, with the true, sort of uh, the most important thing about the company. Because first of all, a lot of the CEOs, I know Vista says work on your business versus in your business. I'm a Vistage trained coach. This is how I started coaching, because I really wanted to connect my business and my coaching into one. And the truth of the matter is, a lot of them don't have the time or the know-how or the inclination to do that. However, I think that what I like about Growth Drive is that it opens that conversation much better than core value. Core value had a one-to-one, not one-to-one, but had a connection between, well, if you put $10,000 in sales, you're going to get $100,000 worth of value. But most of it was less strategic and more operational, which is fine. There's nothing wrong with it. I think George has taken it to the next level, and there is more conversation about the true growth and the value. And maybe, honestly, I'm not convinced that everything is one-to-one, but I think the value of Growth Drive, or core value for that matter, to me, was more about start making people, CEOs and business owners, thinking about other things other than revenues and sales and so on, and taking them out of the details and giving them a more bigger picture perspective of what goes on into a company. And then I personally have taken some of the Growth Drive, taken a step back and looked at it from a maturity model and saying, okay, well, if we have 8, 9 drivers of growth, then depending on where in the maturity of a business you are in, then it's the same drivers. However, what it matters at that particular point and the decisions you make and what you focus on are different when you are in traction mode versus in repeatable profit and revenue mode, and when you are into the growth mode. I still think, is in my humble opinion, is just a way to approach every business growth problem in a more repeatable fashion and then build upon that. I don't know if it answered your question, but that's how I look at Growth Drive and how I look at our newly developing growth advisory sort of practice. When you do that proactively during building your company and growing your company, instead of at the last moment when somebody says, well, I've had several situations. I've been involved with some people that have been involved with both core value and George for a long time. And actually the some of the business valuation portions of it were, some of my colleagues were advisors to help, refine that for George. And I think that a lot of companies that are ready to do something, either take some money off the table or sell, and they do the valuation and they realize, well, they have some unrealized value and they have a choice. If they're early enough, they have 2 or 5 years, they can actually, take specific action to realize that value that it's still in there. Or they can say, oh, you know what, I'm going to sell it as is, and somebody else can realize the value. I think what we can do is, if we start early enough and if we work with them, when we work with them on a regular basis, they're not or ever in a position where well, I don't know if I have more value uncovered or unrealized. It gives them a better view on where they are, the business owner and CEO, a better view of where they are and what are some of the things that matter when it comes to the company value or to achieving the goals, whatever they are for them, because not everybody's got exit goals. And if that's the case, they make different decisions than the ones that want to exit or maximizing the value.
I like that he chose the name Growth Drive, but I find that over the last 4 years or more, he's gone back to what he was doing with core value, in the sense of focusing on the exit. And the fact that he and everybody are at the exit planning conference right now is a partial indication of that. I like more, like you have said, with strategy coming out of large companies. We weren't worried about selling the company. That was exiting the company. It was all about creating shareholder value, increasing the value of the stock, increasing the dividend, making sure the balance sheet was good, and trading off whether you own real estate or rent the real estate, put it in a separate company. It was all about strategy for growth, but it had nothing to do with exit. And still prefer that, but I get pulled into exits to some extent anyway, because
Well,
so
I
few
hear you.
business owners think about the right things about growth until they're trying to exit.
Exactly. And I think one thing that I didn't mention is I learned a very interesting lesson running a $10 million company. I was brought in, I'm a change management expert within strategy and management consulting. So I was brought in to help change, grow, scale the company, number one. And number two, to help their internal processing, like to help the back end to support growth. So basically, they had a big contract that they had won and they couldn't deliver on. And ultimately, in the end, they couldn't because, change takes a lot of gumption. And what I've come to realize is that they are growth-minded business owners, CEOs, and they are the ones that run a lifestyle business and pay lip service to growth.
Yes.
And I didn't realize that he had a lifestyle business, regardless of the fact that he had 3 or 4 board members that were like $400 million bank here and running large companies on the other side. And when I got in there, I realized that he wasn't ready to execute on the change needed to achieve the results that they wanted. So they didn't have metrics. They didn't measure the value and the impact of what they were doing, and the decisions they were making were not supporting the bottom line of the company, and they were just simply lifestyle sort of activities. And so I think part of the reason why I wanted to get into what I'm doing right now is because I just said to myself, okay, so if my thesis is that I love the entrepreneurial spirit in America, if my thesis is that there are so many small businesses out there that are in a similar situation, but they really want to grow, what would they need to know, and what kind of frameworks can they use to grow successfully? And that's how I got into this. As far as the exit, though, if I look at the markets, and I read this article, it's very interesting. It said that until now, a majority of the companies out there, all they want is grow, exit, exit, exit. So everything in a CEO's and business owner's mind is, how do I exit? But things are shifting right now, not necessarily just exit, but also building and growing valuable, strong companies. I think the exit mania started actually when I started my first business in 2000 after the technology boom. And I think it is probably fueled by the technology, more than anything else, the nature of it and the nature of, how do you go somewhere if you are an innovator and you build something, but building something and successfully getting traction and growing a company are two different things. More importantly, if you're an innovator and your gem is coming up with something really cool, then maybe you don't want to go through the hassle of growing that company. And so I think that the nature of innovation and nature of the times we're living in has made it more prevalent to exit. The other thing, though, is, and I can see why they're going there, and I see your point, but I see their point too. We are at the cusp of potentially huge exits because baby boomers are about to get out of business, right?
Oh, yeah.
So I think that there is this assumption that there is a lot that can be done during those exits. And that's where we, as growth advisors, can help. Thirdly, I would assume that there is a specific model that George has in mind about how to get growth drive in front of a lot more people. And I think EPI has an established model for getting in front of a lot of advisors. And so I would assume that that's a good vehicle for George to bring growth drive in front of a lot of people.
So let's absolutely agree that there is a large group of people who are going to be exiting their businesses. Okay. The people who buy those businesses, what is their first priority? I would argue it's growth, because they bought that business not to be a lifestyle business. They bought that business as an investment, and they are intending to grow it. And if they're private equity, they want to get out in 5 years. So I'm beginning to think that the focus for me shouldn't be on the people that are trying to exit, but the buyers and what they want to do with the business after they get a hold of it. And that's
totally agree with you, Paul. By the way, can I say something?
Sure.
Do you want to continue this conversation via phone? Because this is recorded and I don't know where it's going, and we're not online. And honestly, I don't mind being recorded. There is nothing that we are saying that it's not, but it kind of feels odd.
Yeah, no, that probably would be a good idea. And besides, we're coming up on the 7:30 when this ends anyway. So
yeah.
But
I agree with you 100%. And I have some thoughts about that.
Okay.
About the PE and everything else. So I'd love to hear your thoughts on it. And that's why I offered the phone.
Yeah, no, we should do that, or we can do our own Zoom.
Exactly. So if you give me your number, I can either call you or send you a thing so we can continue it now or another time.
The easiest thing is go to paulmenig.com. It'll route you to my regular website, and there should be a big red box somewhere to schedule a call or let's talk, and that'll take you to my calendar, and you can choose a 30-minute Zoom or whatever you'd like out of there's like 6 options or 8 options.
Are you Business Accelerant?
That's me. Yes. At the bottom of the page, you'll see a nice picture of me.
Oh, I see. Why in the bottom, Paul?
I don't know.
Oh, we'll need to talk about that.
Okay.
Okay, so privacy policy. Let's talk.
Oh, that privacy policy is one of those things that you're obligated by law to have.
I know. Okay. Well, I'll schedule some time so we can continue. But no, that's a very interesting comment about the companies that buy the businesses that are being sold. And I have noticed my first business was in the residential home building industry, a technology platform for the residential home building industry, which doesn't exist, by the way, because there is not much technology, or it has not been until now. But so I'm familiar with a lot of trends in the PE space to create sort of like larger companies by buying, a chain of companies so they can sort of offer services within the life cycle of a specific, things. And I like that because I can see the method to the madness. I come from, a place where we try to figure out what's the method to the madness and create a structure around it. So I totally agree. And I am curious, what are your thinking about that? Because I've been focusing my practice, or I'm focusing more on the technology companies only because it aligns with my technology advisory, and makes it easier so people don't get
Yeah.
confused, number
And,
one. And number
and
two, go ahead.
what that makes me think of when you said that and your different background and what you enjoy, I'm used to having to predict what technology is going to be in vogue 5 or 10 years from now.
Oh,
And
lovely.
so, when you think in terms of what the buyer's going to do, one of the common things, some lifestyle company has a ERP system that is homegrown and useless. And if they're going to do a platform strategy with their buying, they're going to use an ERP that's new. They're going to want new technology to go, or they're going to do something with a CRM because that company doesn't have anything. They don't know how to do
Yeah.
sales.
Yeah.
And so, take, what you've done and what I've done and the kind of strategy I was involved in at the high level at Daimler and things, it makes so much more sense to think about how can we help the buyers achieve their aims.
But more important than that, and this is where I think you and I need to talk further. What I'm focusing for the last few years, when I left my chief operating officer job, I worked for a year and a half to build a market for one of the first AI technologies. And it's funny how things have changed since 2018. But I think that the whole nature of platforms and the whole nature of SaaS and whole nature of everything, it's kind of like changing every day, every second. And with the advent of AI, I think one of the things that needs to be rethought from the terms of integration post M&A is that it's not anymore just creating those platforms and so on, but also, creating the automation beyond just the platform. And so I've done a lot of work on that space, trying to kind of like figure that out. So
Well, I'll offer you one more thing before we quit. So yesterday, my irrigation um, maintenance guy came, and he and I have gotten to know each other quite well. He's developed his own routing software,
yeah,
so that's specifically for people who have to go do backflow testing and irrigation system repairs and things like that. And he asked me, well, do you know somebody who's good with databases? I said, no, I don't. But if you want to take and turn this in and get an angel investment, there I could help you because, there's all kinds of service people who would benefit from the type of software he's talking about. And he mentioned why he wants a database person is the, QuickBooks doesn't really connect directly with people who have 100 clients a day versus other things. And he's got in his mind a different CRM that would work differently with billing and everything else to connect it all and make his life easier and make a whole bunch of people easier. So, there's some
well,
interesting
we need to
things out
talk
there.
with him because actually right now, I'm part of a startup, um, you know, um, advisory and board, and like we have an AI platform right now that can, I mean, you can go in and build a CRM system like Monday.com or even HubSpot and everything else, the whole functionality, homegrown with AI and connect it however you want it, and then do all the development and everything else and the databasing in a much different way than it was done before. So you and I are on the same page. Getting,
There's
getting
a lot of fun out there to be had.
absolutely, absolutely. And so my point is that I think you can slice the pie so finely and so differently. And I think going back to understanding the systems, understanding, the ecosystem and figuring out how to achieve what you achieve, has changed quite a lot. And part of the reason why I love the growth advisory part is because it gives me the opportunity to take a step back and figure out, I always say, what are we solving for?
Yeah.
And so I enjoy that. But I'll leave you with one tidbit. I love MIT people. I'm a tinkerer, but I am not a developer. I'm just a person that turns some of their thoughts into processes, system, like, go to market and connecting the dots in a lot of things. And so I've had the pleasure to work with a lot of MIT grads, much older gentlemen than I. Learned a lot. I was part of a group in early 2010 and on, a non-for-profit organization that majority was MIT, and one of our advisors came from the Boston area and New Hampshire area, and he was the gentleman that designed the floppy disk for NASA.
Oh, yes. I recently read that story too, and some of our MIT stuff.
Exactly. He was at MIT at the time. So
Yeah.
my point is, I love all the brain power and all the work that is being there. I'm just like a kid in a candy store. And I'm very excited that I get it. And I'm very excited that I can be a conduit between that and, taking it to market and kind of making it a success. So
Yeah.
we have a lot of things in common, but I'm glad we got a chance to talk, and I'm glad that everybody is at EPI. So
Yeah.
otherwise, we probably would have continued talking about a lot of other growth drive stuff and about, client things, which are very important. Don't take me wrong, but sometimes
Right.
we don't have the time to just have more in-depth conversations. So now we do.
Right. Well, thank you very much, Silvana. I appreciate you coming on and having an in-depth one-on-one conversation. We'll talk more.
It has been my pleasure, and I will get on the schedule and maybe we can have another fun conversation and build upon it and talk a little bit more about the integration portion of things.
All right. Take care and make it a great day.
Same to you. Have a lovely day.
Bye.
Bye-bye.